Okay, looks like we're live. We'll see how this one goes. Hey, everybody, it's been a really long time since I did any podcasting or live streaming. And this is going to be interesting because I haven't done it in such a long time and don't really intend to do it like super frequently these days. But I did want to do what has become my annual top games of the year and have a little discussion around that. So I am going to go ahead and just grab, before we jump in, grab the stream link here. So bear with me because I'm going to share this over to a couple of Discord servers and just see if anybody wants to jump in and share in the conversation. So I'm going to say I'm live streaming my top 10 right now. All right, there it goes, going into that server, and then let me throw it into the other one. Okay, here we go. I thought there was a way that I could share this and actually let people join like live from their videos, their webcams into this, but it appears that perhaps I cannot. So I don't see. Maybe that's only on the mobile version. It's been a long time since I messed with any of this stuff, and it appears that YouTube now has their own like baked in studio and all kinds of cool stuff in here for the live stream. Used to be like a Google Hangout Live that we used to use back when, believe it or not, I think it was 8 years ago now that we started the World Map podcast, and a bunch of us used to do the Google Hangout Live on here. So I'll keep an eye on the chat, see if anybody joins and has any disagreements or anything with my picks. But I'm going to make this pretty short and sweet, hopefully. Not going to post this to the RSS feed and the traditional podcast feed and take all the time to edit the audio and all that weirdness. I just want to throw these up so that I mainly have them to refer back to someday if I want to remember, like, what were the games I really liked from that year, this year, or whatever. I always kind of keep a little log of these. I will say, 2023 was a year in which I played the fewest amount of video games really I have ever played in my life, at least since I was probably 5, 6 years old. Been a pretty heavy gamer, to be honest. Always, balanced it with whatever else needed to get done, but I think in 2023 really prioritized family and health and career and relationships and just like a lot of different things, friendships, more reading, and really tried to strike more of a balance and really, got a lot healthier and stronger too than I've ever been in my life. And you can play video games still and balance with all those things, certainly, and I did. And it's a hobby that I still very much enjoy. I think there's a lot of great art and storytelling and experiences out there that people are creating in video games, and it's obviously it's the biggest entertainment industry by far in the world. Dwarfs Hollywood by leaps and bounds, and so it's an important part of our culture. But definitely, I did not get a chance to get to and play everything that I normally would have, and normally I do a top 25 list. This year I've narrowed it down to 10 because I played more than 10 games this year, but finished very few. I would say did not finish all the games on this list. Played enough of them to know if they belong on the list or not. But definitely did not finish all of them. Maybe at some point I will. I still have games from 2022 that I haven't finished yet that I'd love to get back to, that I'm very close to the end of, and just haven't had a chance to get to. Prioritizing other things like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. But someday I will get there to those, and someday I will finish all the games on this list. I'll let you know, the ones that I did finish when I talk about each of them. But I'm going to jump right in and start talking about my top 10 games of the year. I've got them in a little Google Doc here on my phone to remind me. So I can hold this up. I think it might be maybe backwards on your screen when you see it on video, or maybe YouTube auto corrects that for me when the video processes. I don't know. But I've got them here, so I'll hold them up each time. Number 10 is Cocoon, and that was my number 10 game of the year. I thought it was a delightful little puzzle game. If you haven't heard of or played this game, it is on Xbox Game Pass. you can jump in and give it a try. And it's basically a game where you are inside of a world, right, and a spherical sort of world, and you're solving puzzles where you're kind of finding other orbs, which turns out every orb you find has a world inside of it. It is a world. And so you're doing this interesting thing where you're kind of hopping into worlds to grab worlds out of them that you're going to come back and put into different mechanisms within the puzzles to then affect things in the other worlds. And you're just jumping in and out of these spheres. And every time you jump out, you realize you were actually in this tiny little microcosm of a world. And there's a much bigger world now to be explored. If you think back to, I think it was the ending of the first Men in Black, spoilers for 1997 or whenever the heck that was. But if you think back to the ending of the first Men in Black, when it zooms out at the end of the movie, and you find out that like the whole universe that they were in and Earth and all that was just like a marble on like one little dog's collar or something, right? And there's this much larger universe, and it kind of expands out infinitely. That's sort of how Cocoon is set up, and I thought it was a really clever idea. It didn't grab me and keep me in for a long time playing it. It's not a game that I rolled credits on, um, but I thought it was really interesting. And if you're super into puzzle games, I think you'll really like it. Number 9 on my list is Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is number 9 on my list. I'm a huge fan of the developer, the studio that does this game, Remedy. The fact that they've tied together this whole Remedy verse now with the Alan Wake games and Quantum Break and Control, and there's all these little Easter eggs now across all of them, and the universes are starting to collide. Um, I think is really cool. This one's a little lower on my list because I don't necessarily enjoy the really hard take that they brought to the game for this sequel to bring it down into more of a psychological thriller, survival horror sort of gameplay style with all of the really grotesque stuff and gore and jump scares. And I just, it doesn't like bother me, so to speak, but I don't have fun playing horror games usually. I play video games because I want to relax and enjoy an experience, and I much more prefer a game that has whimsy and color and everything. And this is still has a little bit of that, but which is one of the reasons it's on my list, and I'm liking it. But it is a very sort of dark, drab game that leans really far into the horror genre this time around. But the storytelling is absolutely superb. Just Remedy always has the most interesting mysteries and great writing, great voice acting, great graphics. Everything about Alan Wake 2 from that perspective is really, really good. And it throws you right back into that universe where there's some interesting stuff happening. And you actually start out the game playing as a character named Saga, not playing as Alan Wake. Although I think that comes later. I haven't gotten to that part of the game yet. But she is an FBI agent who's piecing together these mysteries, and you've got this whole sort of case board with the lines, the lines of string running between pieces of evidence and photographs and folders and all that sort of stuff. And to me, that's really fascinating to piece together the evidence and try to solve the mystery and everything. I thought it's a pretty fun experience. So Alan Wake 2. Number 8, this is a big one. Super Mario Wonder. I was lukewarm on Super Mario Wonder when I first started playing it. I didn't think that the some of the new powers that they brought to it, like the elephant suit and the bubble flower and some of those things, I didn't think they were all that great. Really added all that much to the game, and I still think that they don't. But as you play this game more and more, you come to realize that that's not what the game is about. That's not what differentiates it from the other Mario games. That's not the innovation here. The innovation here really to me is about the wonder flower that you can find in each level that totally re-swizzles the level. If you think back to a game like Celeste, I think it was, where you had the A side, B side to the levels. Different games have done different things like that. The wonder flower sort of changes the challenge of the level, and a lot of them it changes the camera perspective or gives you some other thing that you're supposed to be doing in the level. to get to it and get the bonus wonder seed out of that level, in addition to the one that you get for just beating the level normally. And then, of course, you need to do both in several stages per world within Mario Wonder, because you're collecting these seeds to unlock the Bowser Jr. or whomever fight, the castle at the end of each world, so that you can dispel the sort of cloud, chain chomp, piranha plant, whatever things around Bowser's castle, to eventually dispel all of them from each world and get to go in and do the final boss fight. So that's kind of the premise of Super Mario Wonder. The other reason that I love it, in addition to that kind of new take on the gameplay, two really. There's these hats or badges, so to speak, and you equip badges for different powers, and you can change your badge anytime you want going into a level. And you don't necessarily have to have just like one badge that beats a specific level. Different badges just help you in different ways get through the levels. So there's a floating cap that lets you float further when you're wearing that badge. There's a badge that lets you do a higher power jump, reminiscent of the squat jump from Super Mario Brothers 2 on the NES. There's all kinds of these badges. You find them and you buy them with the currency in the game, and unlock them in different ways. I think that's really great. It's super fun. I also think the pacing of the game is really good. There are just these like bonus stages that will pop up sometimes after a really hard level, where all you do is you go in there and kind of bounce off the walls collecting coins, and then it's over. Just these really quick hit, fun ways to sort of break up the pacing of the game, so it's not all challenging, it's not all easy. It's really fun. There's so much whimsy. One of my favorite things about the game is the attention to detail, to the music, and to the sound direction, in terms of these little like flower guys that exist in this universe, who just they like talk to you as you're walking through the level, and they comment on things that you're doing. You'll maybe just barely escape death somehow, and one of the little flowers in the level that's just like sitting on the ground, like, whoa, that was close, wasn't it? Or there'll be a level with the music, and the flowers will start counting like 1, 2, 3, jump. They're adding so much to the game just through the sound and just through the talking, and these sort of silly little characters that are kind of hanging out with you while you're going through the level. So there's a lot to like about Mario Wonder. I think it's an excellent entry into the Mario franchise. It doesn't necessarily, excuse me, rise to the top. It's not a Super Mario World. It's not a Super Mario Brothers 3. For me, I think it doesn't even necessarily touch Super Mario 3D World. Of course, it's in a different category from Odyssey and the other 3D Mario's. It's more of a 2D or 2.5D Mario, where you're on the map and selecting stages and going into stages and coming out of them. Um, but it's top tier. I mean, just because it's not like one of the greats. I mean, all the Mario games are great. There's like very few. I would say there's no bad Mario games. I don't love Mario Sunshine. I don't think Super Mario 64 necessarily always holds up all that well. But by and large, there's those, even with those exceptions, those are not bad games. They're still fun games. So in a world of these just S tier games that the Mario franchise keeps pumping out, it's hard to rise to like the top. But I think Mario Wonder, it's in the top third of Mario games ever made for sure. It's really good. And the bonus too is I've been playing the entire game through with my two daughters. They love the game. They have a lot of fun with the game. It's set up in a way where it's challenging, but if you're playing it with co-op with friends who aren't necessarily gamers, or with younger children, I don't love screen death, but it does at least let you kind of keep going through the level, and they'll like kill off whoever is like hanging behind in the level and not advancing along. But it doesn't kill them. It turns them into a bubble ghost, and like their little ghost can fly over and you can touch them and revive them without losing a life. And so I think it enables a way for them to play. Now, I kind of wish it would just go ahead and teleport them over to you and just be done with it. I don't love screen death. I don't love screen death as a thing generally, like the whole having to fly over and touch them. I don't know, that piece is kind of unnecessary to me, but still, it gives younger children a way to play, and that has really added to the fun of this game for me, is being able to do the whole thing with my kids. Number 7, this is a game that I think, hasn't gotten enough attention. It's Tiny Thor. And I think, in a year like 2023, just, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm talking about 10 of my favorite games of this year. But this is a game where in any other year, there were like 40 games that came out this year that would have been the top game and won all the Game Award games and all that, won all the trophies for everybody in any other year had they been, a smaller pool that had come out. There's that many just excellent, excellent games that came out in 2023. It's crazy. It's incredible. It's historic. A lot of that is because of things that got delayed during COVID, finally coming to fruition and releasing. Just kind of all slammed everybody at once. But I think the detriment there is that smaller games, indie games that came out that were really, really, really good that would have made it on people's top tens or top fives in any other year, just like got no attention this year, and some people never heard of them. I happened to come across Tiny Thor a long time ago when it showed up to be able to be wishlisted on Steam, just purely through the Steam algorithm. I think recommending it as a title that I might like based on other games that I've liked. I checked out some screenshots, checked out what it was about, added it to my wish list. When it came out this year, I went ahead and snagged it and played it, and I've almost played through the whole thing, and I absolutely love Tiny Thor. This game is most reminiscent of the Super Nintendo era, and if you like Mega Man, if you like Donkey Kong Country, then this is a game for you. I think it's most easily described as a game that sort of combines some Donkey Kong Country with some Mega Man, specifically the Mega Man X games on Super Nintendo, because the levels there's this really tight platforming through the levels and a lot of little like hidden secrets in the levels, much like you have in Donkey Kong Country, and they're very challenging platforming too, like the Donkey Kong Country games. Um, but then you also have your Thor, right? Tiny Thor. It's like Thor as a child, and so you do have Mjolnir, and you've got this hammer, right, that you're like aiming, and it's geometric, and you can bounce it off walls, and you can hit switches with it and solve puzzles and all these different things. And then at the end of each world, there's a boss fight that's very much like a Mega Man style boss fight, where you're in sort of this little closed off arena at the end of the level, and you're fighting the Queen Bee lady or whoever it is for that level, and they're pretty tough, again, pretty challenging Mega Man style boss fights. And then each time you're unlocking like a new power, some new ability that the hammer can do, or whatever it is, and kind of building on your character as you go throughout the game. So I think if those style of games are at all appealing to you, I got to say Tiny Thor is one of the best versions of those types of games that's ever been made. It's really good. Also, a perfect Steam Deck game. I played the majority of it on my Steam Deck, and it's great to just be able to like pick up and do a level on the couch after dinner or something. Do a level a day or whatever. It's a pretty quick hit, short stages, and a lot of fun when you jump in, jump out, and it's just a game that kept me pulled along all year. Really enjoyed Tiny Thor. Number 6. Number 6 is Diablo 4. Diablo 4, I have not finished all of the final act yet. I've made it through a lot of the game. I enjoyed Diablo 4 a lot. What I didn't like about it was, much like I mentioned with Alan Wake 2, how they went, even more into sort of the dark, grotesque gore uh, pathway with this. Uh, the levels, regardless of if you're in the desert or the forest or the swamp or wherever you are in Diablo 4, the levels just always felt kind of muddy and brown, and a lot of browns and grays and dark blues and just depressing colors. And I would play this game for like 90 minutes or whatever, and I would just feel like it was just so oppressive to play Diablo 4. And I was having a lot of fun. I think the skill trees are great, the classes are great. The moment to moment action and gameplay is a lot of fun. I mean, it is at its core Diablo. It's some of the best Diablo that I've played. It does a lot of things right. It does gear really well. It does leveling pretty well. The quests are interesting. The storyline is really great. There's a lot to love about Diablo 4, in my opinion. I played the game as a druid class, went with a real heavy into the werewolf and the poison build, so that like when my werewolf slashed people, they got poisoned, and then that spread. And I could do this werewolf power where you sort of like jumped back and forth to enemies really, really fast to clear big hordes or do focus damage on bosses. I was having a lot of fun with it. I'd love to go back, in a world where I had unlimited time, go back and re-roll and play, more wizard-like class or something like that. But I thought Diablo 4 was actually really excellent, and definitely will go back to finish the rest of it at some point. Moving on to number 5, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This game came out much earlier in the year. I didn't jump into it and play a significant amount of it until later in the year, just with all the other things that were coming out and all the other priorities that I had and whatever. But anybody that knows me knows that Star Wars is probably my most beloved franchise. One of those weird people that kind of like Star Wars and Star Trek equally. And so I love to play anything that has a good Star Wars story. And I think Star Wars Jedi Survivor does. I haven't rolled credits on it yet. But from what I've played so far of the game, I like it actually better than the first game, Jedi Fallen Order. I like this sequel, Jedi Survivor, better. I think the to me the use of the powers and the different lightsaber stances and the parries and all the combat style that you can do, to me it just feels easier to grasp and use than in the first game. They still, for some reason, demand on putting platforming into these games, which bugs the heck out of me. I wish they would just completely leave the platforming out. I think they do a horrible, horrible job at the platforming in these games. But I love the fighting. Every moment of getting to fight battle droids or bounty hunters or stormtroopers or inquisitors or whatever, it's a lot of fun. And then they get the Star Wars essence of this game just perfect, right? Like every little moment of it feels like you are living and breathing Star Wars when you're playing this game. I remember specifically like climbing across a ledge, looking up, and there's a B1 battle droid from the prequels because I'm on this like world that still has kind of like old technology, even though these games take place in between the prequels and the original trilogy. And the B1 battle droid's like talking in his little voice, and being sort of aloof in the way that they are. And then I jump up and I slice him in half and I deflect some blaster bolts back at his buddies and they fall over, very much like you would see Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon do in the Phantom Menace on Naboo. I just love this game and how Star Wars it is, and it's just so fun to play. You really truly do feel like a Jedi playing this game. They nailed that a lot. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4, Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5. Uh, Many folks who have followed in the past my favorite games of the year will know that previously the Miles Morales game and previously before that the Spider-Man game on PS5 were some of my favorite games of those years, and certainly probably up there in some of my favorite games of all time. So of course it makes sense that Spider-Man 2 would make my list this year, because you get to play Peter and Miles in the same game, often at the same time in the same fights. And so this game is a ton of fun. It brings back, what this franchise has done, which is take some of the traditional movie and comic book Spider-Man stories that we know and put just like a slightly different twist on them with maybe different villains being played by different characters. They're sort of um, persona behind them maybe is a different character in this universe than they would be in what we know in the comics. So I think like throwing that sort of wrinkle into the Venom story. We've got Craven the Hunter in this game. There's a lot of other villains that have popped up during my time with this game. It's really good. It just tells a great Marvel Spider-Man story. And as a huge Marvel fan and as a lifelong lover of Spidey storytelling, I think this game nails it. The other thing they nail is they continue to bring the combat that is that sort of um, Arkham style combat on steroids, where it's fast paced and you're swinging around and you're doing air combos. and you've got gadgets, and you've got special powers, and you've got combo powers. Now in this game, you've got tag team fight powers with Spidey, where Miles will like just swoop in and help you bash somebody's head in. There's all the web throwing and all that. I mean, everything you could imagine in terms of the combat is here. And this game really starts off uh, really, really fun. I mean, it throws you into the action from the first seconds of the game. A lot of games I feel like these days have really boring, too handholdy, too long openers and tutorials. This game does not do that. It throws you right into a fight against a well-known villain right at the beginning of the game and brings the heat. And I think it's should be commended for doing that. Now, why is it a little bit lower on my list? There are some issues that I have with Spider-Man 2. One is the pacing is really, really off, in my opinion. There's a lot of these sort of walking simulator, walk around a part of the city or walk around a house or whatever, and press A and read like 50 different things in the building to get this like kind of extra contextual flavor to the storytelling. And I don't know, I guess it's supposed to like tell some story and let you explore a little bit. And I don't know, just give me that in a cutscene real quick, throw me back into the action. I'm here to be Spider-Man. I'm here to be Peter and Miles and like do the fighting and the web slinging and traversal. Those are the fun parts of this game. Those are the parts of the games that I think most people are here to play. Don't make me spend an hour wandering around Oscorp reading about bees. It's just ridiculous. The other thing is the mini games that they throw in here. Again, I mentioned bees. There's like a whole sequence, very minor spoiler here of something that you do early on in the game. There's like a sequence where you're flying a drone and like around shooting these like murder hornets or whatever out of the sky. Like I don't know why I need to do that. I don't know why that matters to the story. There's some other stuff where you're like doing this really easy puzzles to unlock prowler caves and different things. There's just too many little like distraction filler mini games to like I guess artificially inflate out, little points to give you to spend on the skill tree and make the game a little bit longer and whatever. I really wish that they would just streamline all that stuff, tell the stories organically through what I'm doing and through the really amazing combat and skills and gadgetry that they've set up, and then use some cutscenes where you need to. But I really don't want these walking simulator pieces and all these little like random mini game pieces. They just completely turn me off and break the pace of the game. I'm having so much fun fighting, Craven and Sandman and all these people. And then you make me like walk around and talk to Harry in a flashback sequence in the gym for 30 minutes. And it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it. Number three, Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is like this brand new, out of nowhere franchise, dropped earlier this year, hit Game Pass. I don't think anybody had really heard of it before it came out. And it turned out to be one of the coolest experiences that I have had, not just this year, but in many years. Hi-Fi Rush is a game where you're doing a little bit of platforming and a whole lot of combo-based action fighting as this character who's sort of got a robot arm with an electric guitar that he fights with that kind of transforms, and you unlock all these new combos and powers along the way, and allies along the way. You get different people who are going to come and fight along beside you and do different super powered combos with you. And there's two big sort of stylistic catches to this game. One is it's animated in a very almost anime style, but more of like the American um, mocking or mimicking rather anime style that you would see in something like Avatar or Korra. It's that real kind of bright and like less of the big eyes on the characters and that sort of thing, but it's definitely an anime influenced art style. Um, but very bright colors, and it's so fun. The graphics are so well done. It's like you're playing a cartoon, but then there's the music element that they add in here, which is the real hook. And even as you're walking through the levels, like the trash cans or paintings on the wall or whatever will be like sort of just subtly bouncing along to the beat of the music that's in the background. Um, it's wonderful how music is infused into this game and how the animation is so good. I mean, it really does feel like you're playing a mid-90s Fox afternoon, get home from school cartoon. Uh, and then you too are using the music in the battle system because as you fight, you need to time your swings with your weapon and your different attacks that you're doing with the beat of the music. So you're listening and you're watching and you're button pressing all at the same time. And it's a little bit like you're playing something like Guitar Hero with your hands as you listen to the music, but you don't see the notes popping up. You really have to like listen and keep an eye and an ear out for the beat and how things are flowing in the battle. And if you time it all correctly, you get these just amazingly orchestrated, fun battles with these huge combos that you pull off and rack up tons of points and just have a really fun time. The story is great. It's whimsical. It's funny. The writing is just hilarious. Some of the predicaments that your character gets into are hilarious. It's a great story from start to finish. The game is just fun to play from start to finish. I cannot recommend Hi-Fi Rush highly enough. I think it harkens back to sort of that PlayStation 2 era of gameplay in a lot of ways that we haven't had in a long time, but it just puts a fresh, new, innovative spin on it and polishes it all and makes it feel really smooth and look super fun to play. The only nit really at all that I have to pick with this game well, two. I got two nits to pick with this game. One is there's not enough licensed music in it. I hope they get to do a sequel because this game was pretty successful where they get some licensed music on board. A lot of the music's like original music, and so it's not that recognizable. It's still great. But I can tell you when you do the first boss fight, you do it to a Nine Inch Nails song, and it's just like exhilarating to do this. It's so fun and it's so cool, and you're like jamming with the Nine Inch Nails song. If every boss fight was a well-known rock song, I think this game would be even more fun, but it's not that. So again, minor nit. The only other minor nit to pick with this game is that there are some sort of timed sequences where an enemy will kind of flash like 6 or 7 notes in a row at you, and then you have to very perfectly repeat them back, or do what's called this game's version of a parry, where you have to do a certain beat back and time it just right to parry the attack back and weaken the enemy enough to be able to do a regular attack on them. Some of those things, there was like some hard fails in there that could happen where the game would have to sort of like do a reload real quick. And it just took the pacing out of the game. It made it a little too challenging for me personally in some places, where I just didn't like having that sort of trial and error of learning that on the fly. I wish the game had found a way to sort of gradually ramp me up to that, or maybe give me a little more leeway in some way, maybe give me a lower grade on the level completion but still let me through, or do something to sort of change how that piece of it was handled, because it got a little frustrating just in a couple of spots. But again, overall, this was a game was like a 9 out of 10 for me. Really liked it. Number two, Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is the JRPG that I have wanted for many, many, many years. It's finally here. It's so fun. It is got a little bit of Chrono Trigger type of legacy to it in terms of how the gameplay comes along and the way the battles work, and then a whole lot of Super Mario RPG, which, yes, I know got a remake or a remaster on Switch this year. But Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, probably a top 3 of all time game for me. I played through that game start to finish so many times as a kid. Love that game. And Super Mario RPG is just baked into the veins of Sea of Stars so much. Everything from sort of the timed defense and attacks and the battles and the way that the turn-based combat works, to the level traversal and all sorts of different pieces. And this game also just brings a really beautiful color palette, great graphical style to it, reminiscent of that Super Nintendo era, but very colorful and well done. And it tells a lighthearted, fun story that comes with a lot of unexpected twists and turns. It has great boss battles. It has great environments. It has lots of little nooks and crannies to explore that you get rewarded for when you find little secrets. It's got amazing like combo powers that all the members of your party can band together and do when you're fighting enemies. I just could go on and on with praise for Sea of Stars. If you are at all a fan of Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, or any of those other sort of old school turn-based JRPGs that we don't really get a lot of these days, then I think you will fall in love with Sea of Stars. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend it. Now, finally, for the moment you've been waiting for, my number one game of 2023 is Marvel's Midnight Suns. That's right. My favorite game of 2023, dear listeners, is a game that came out in 2022. I figure if it's good enough for Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards and all the other gaming outlets out there to save their December releases for the following year's awards, then it's good enough for me too. And I didn't get a chance to play Midnight Suns in 2022 when it came out that December, but I jumped on it in 2023. I played it mostly on Steam Deck, and let me tell you, Midnight Suns is a banger. It is an amazing, amazing game. It is a gamer's game. It has everything. It has great Marvel characters, and you might think, oh, it's only got like 4 or 5 of the different Marvel heroes, and most of them are some of the B-list heroes. No, no. Let me tell you, the heroes in this game continue to unlock and roll out throughout the story of the game. By the end of the game, and if you get the version with the DLC packs, which is pretty cheap, I think these days, especially then, you will have an enormous roster of Marvel heroes in this game who all have a very unique play style and a very fun way to help you achieve the outcome that you're trying to achieve within each battle. And I just love this game so much. The Basically in Midnight Suns, in addition to playing through this amazing Marvel story that has villains like Scarlet Witch and dark version of Bruce Banner, and of course some more demonic presences that I won't give away as well. You're getting this great Marvel story, but you're also getting this really great tactics and strategy game. Almost like a tactics RPG type game, but then with layered on with a lot of the team building and sort of attack building strategies of something like an XCOM style of game. And I think that actually the fact that this came from Firaxis and gets compared to XCOM a lot is actually bad. I know that like for a lot of people that's a selling point, but I think for a lot of people that's a turnoff too, because I think a lot of people think of XCOM as, oh, I have the 85% chance to hit that alien and kill it, and somehow it rolls the 15% chance and I miss it, and then suddenly some alien throws like a grenade and my entire party's wiped out and everybody dies and my game's over, and it gets like frustrating. And Midnight Suns is not like that. Okay, Midnight Suns is very clear about what's going to happen, which by the way, all of the combat animations are glorious along the way. uh, just every time you do an attack, there's this great unique animation that's just beautifully done. But it's very clear what's going to happen when you play an attack card. It explains what's going to happen. You can sort of preview movements. You can kind of see exactly how much damage you're going to do to an enemy when you make an attack. You can see all those things, the trajectory of which an enemy is going to be thrown when you attack them with some attacks. Like all of those things are just the user interface for this game. And as somebody who is big into user experience and user interfaces, and spent a lot of time studying them, that's a huge selling point to me for this game, because it's so intuitive that even if you've never played one of these kinds of strategy games before, this game's user interface and just the labels and writing and sort of tips that pop up to teach you the game and to ramp you up from zero to some very complex powers and battles and party combinations and things that you'll be doing by the end of the game. It just does all of that with the perfect level of scale and pacing and explanation and laying things out at your fingertips for you to plan battles, put together your card decks, put together your team members, do upgrades in between the battles, and then again, you're experiencing this awesome Marvel story along the way. I just think it's fun, and the moment-to-moment combat is so fun because every battle is going to play out differently, and the way that I uh, completed a battle is going to be very different from the way you completed a battle. I may have gone in with Wolverine and Blade and characters who are focused on like life steal and type of properties and like taking out multiple enemies all at once or whatever. You may have gone in with like a tankier heroes like Captain America or Iron Man or somebody who are more focused on kind of doling out damage in other ways or area of effect abilities. If you use magic, she's got the portal abilities, and she can set up a portal, kick somebody through a portal. They come bouncing out another portal into some other enemies, and they all fall into a big black hole in the ground. You can sort of like plan your moves out many moves in advance and just take all these different creative approaches. And this game just allows you so much creativity in the gameplay, so much fun, so many choices to be had. And they're all these just really fun kind of tactical choices as you get in the battles. I could go on and on talking about Marvel's Midnight Suns, and I did roll credits on this game, and it's probably the longest game that I played this year, and the game that I spent the most hours on to get to the credits because it's once you pick it up, you're theorizing, right? It's one of those games, right? That's always the sign of a good game is if you're thinking about it when you're not playing it. And whenever I wasn't playing Midnight Suns, I would be theorizing about, how might I set up my party and which attacks might I put in their arsenal to overcome this type of battle or that type of battle or beat this sort of villain. You come across Venom and like all these different villains in the game who have different regenerative abilities and things that you have to account for. Sometimes there's an objective in the battle that isn't killing all the enemies on the battlefield. It might be that you have to protect a certain asset, or you may have to get to a particular point on the map, or whatever it might be. And so that requires a very different approach from the scenarios in which the objective is to just go in and kill a boss or whatever. So it's a thinking man's game or woman's game for sure. And to me, that's just that's the type of game that I love. So I really love Midnight Suns and highly recommend it. And Midnight Suns is, without a doubt, not even close, my game of the year for 2023. Thanks for watching and listening. I've seen a couple of chats come in, seen a couple people jump in and out of the live stream. Appreciate you watching, and anybody who's watching after the stream, thank you too for watching. And go ahead and leave a comment about what I was wrong about, or maybe you agree. And until next time, I guess I'll talk to you in when I talk about my 2024 games of the year. Maybe it'll only be a top 5 then. We'll see how much gaming I get done this year. But things are good, and wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks.